Hi, I'm Bill Barrows from the Central Office of Planning and Programming. Out of all the offices within IDOT, over 7,500 people are counting on you, counting on your workmanship and attention to detail as you install and maintain traffic counting equipment. Your work is the foundation for every IDOT decision, from multi-million-dollar bridges and interchanges to the local town school crossing. Without the accurate count data you provide, our agency can't get rolling on a single project. It's that basic. You're part of a team that's dedicated to accuracy, workmanship, and safety, and we're counting on you.
Hello, my name is Rich Brockett. I work for the Traffic Studies section for the IDOT. I'm here today to give you an overview and explanation of our field procedures in hopes that you and others can help us accomplish our work safely and efficiently. The tape you are watching will focus on and define this work in the field, but will also show the purpose as well. There's nothing less rewarding and dissatisfying to a worker than to be given a job that is meaningless and without merit. Be assured that the results of your labor are highly valued and appreciated. Now, the mechanics of this job are reasonably simple and constant, but the scenarios and application are varied and require a blend of creativity and some common sense. We will attempt to cover a number of these different situations and show you how to approach them and adapt to them. Throughout the duration of your employment and assignment to this particular job, we would like to emphasize two extremely important points. First and foremost is safety. Be aware at all times where you are and what is around you. Be conscious always of traffic. Never take unnecessary chances and never hurry. Be patient. There are no time constraints or deadlines. Quantity does not impress us, but quality does. And that leads us to the second point, quality results. Focus your attention on making a good set, and most of the time you will get good results. Remember, hurried or sloppy work will usually harvest poor results, which simply means doing the work over again. With that in mind, why don't we take a look at the equipment and tools you will be working with.
Whatever vehicle is used, whether it's furnished or if it's your own personal vehicle, an arrangement of the tools and equipment to provide easy access is highly suggested. It makes operations run much smoother. Every basic set will include three pieces of equipment: a road tube, a traffic counter, and a chain. Your road tube is a 50-foot or longer piece of hard, durable rubber tube, just like you drive over at some gas stations. One end is plugged with a bolt and a clamp attached, and the other end has an adjustable wire loop. The clamp and loop are what you use to secure the tube to the roadway. Now, there are three different types of traffic counters: old juniors, new juniors, and mitrons. Your old juniors and new juniors are the two older prototypes of counters. Both run off two 6-volt batteries and have an on-off switch. They both run and count continuously until turned off or the road tube is cut or disconnected. The major difference between these two is that the newer model has a reset button that clears the counter display, similar to a trip odometer in a car. The older model has a counter that accumulates a number, similar to an odometer in a car. Now, the Mitron is a more sophisticated and versatile traffic counter. It's powered by 3 size C batteries and also has an on-off switch. But it also has a mode switch that can count continuously or automatically shut off after 24 or 48 hours. Instead of a counter display like the other two have, the Mitron has an LCD screen that displays the numerical total and clears itself when turned off. The Mitron has proven to be a more reliable counter and has made this job considerably easier because a timetable for picking up is not as rigid and it allows for more flexibility. But until the juniors are fully replaced with Mitrons, their purpose and usage are necessary. Each counter comes equipped with a padlock. You will use it along with chains to secure equipment to fixed objects. The road tubes will be secured 3 different ways, using nail spikes, PK nails, or D7 anchors. Nail spikes are hammered into sod or gravel shoulders. PK nails, sometimes called masonry nails, are hammered into asphalt, oil and chip, or into concrete joints and cracks. The D7 anchors are glued or bonded onto rigid pavement that has no joints or cracks. The various instances of use will be demonstrated a little later when we go into the field. A toolbox will be furnished along with a variety of tools to aid you. Among these are a hammer, crowbar, pliers, screwdriver, bolts, tube clamps, friction tape, tube connectors for splicing two tubes together, a battery tester to check battery amp life, an air bulb for testing counters, additional padlocks, and a set of padlock keys. You will also receive a bicycle tire pump used to test for leaks and cuts in your road tubes, plus some screw-down anchors used to chain to when fixed objects are not present. Goggles are available, if needed, and usage should be considered when driving nails into harder surface types. Some eyeglasses are safety tempered and provide adequate eye protection. For record keeping, you will be given a clipboard, schedule, station maps, daily work forms, envelopes, and stamps if mailing. The traffic counter operator would be encouraged to wear old blue jeans or work pants, work boots, an orange-colored shirt or t-shirts, and to use gloves. It is also recommended that you have rain gear or a poncho on hand in case of wet weather. Items of apparel are not provided, but if employed by IDOT, an orange safety vest and reflective cap or hard hat are supplied, and those are mandatory wearing. This pretty well covers all the equipment and tools that you will ever use in your field operations. Any further explanation about usage will only make sense when we go out and actually demonstrate the functions. So if you're ready, let's make our first set. Traffic counters are basically set in two different areas, either in a municipality or outside the city in the country. We've decided to make this first set in the country. Using your station map, you will navigate yourself to the proper location. Map reading and navigational skills, if not already acquired, will develop with time and practice. A sense of direction is helpful, otherwise a compass may prove handy. As you approach the set site, you'll focus your attention on utility poles, signposts, fences, trees, or other permanent fixtures that you can chain your counter to, preferably on high ground so the counter is above water level in case of heavy rainfall. You will also be alert as to easy access, obstacles, surface and roadway conditions, house, farm, business entrances, incline or decline of the road grade, railroad tracks, proximity to intersections, stop signs, curves, other unusual features. We will give more detail later on as to how these things affect our count. This appears to be a good site. Level road grade, no potholes, away from entrances, some distance from the crossroads, and a good solid signpost to chain to. Let's set here. Be sure to pull over onto the shoulder as far as possible, thus creating less hindrance and hazard to the flow of traffic. If shoulder space is limited, pull into a field entrance. If that's not available, pull as far off as possible and turn your hazard warning lights on. Be certain to check rear view and side mirrors before opening your vehicle door and exiting. Also be sure you have your reflective cap and vest on before getting out. Now remove a road tube, hammer, and 2 nail spikes. Unfasten your road tube and, keeping an eye open to traffic, stretch the tube across the road to the far side opposite the signpost. Hammer the spike into the shoulder at a 45-degree angle towards the road surface and with the traffic flow. This prevents the nail from working its way up and out. Now, go to the other side of the road and adjust the wire loop to the approximate position on the road tube. Before nailing this end down, align the road tube on the surface at a 90-degree angle to the edge of the road. Stand back from the road and snap the tube like a whip to adjust it. After proper alignment, nail this end securely. Next, pull the tube through the wire loop to give it some tension, but not too much. About 1 foot stretch for every 10 feet length of road surface is adequate. Too much tension will eventually pull the nails up. You've now completed the hardest part of the set. Now remove a traffic counter and chain. Push the open end of the road tube onto the nipple at the side of the counter. If the counter is off, turn it on. If a new junior is used, clear the counter display by pushing in the reset button. If a mitron is used, simply switch it on. Now wait for a car to drive across the tube. When it does, it should register as 1. Keep in mind that these machines are activated by impulses of air. Therefore, every 2 axles crossing the tube will register 1 and will accumulate in total. If every axle activates the counter, or should no numbers register at all, first check the road tube for cuts or punctures by pumping air into one end of the tube using the tire pump. If the road tube passes inspection, then a replacement counter should be installed, and that particular counter should be tested in the shop for possible malfunction. If perchance no vehicles are driving by, then a few good foot stomps to the road tube will tell you if things are working okay. Or you could actually drive your own vehicle over the tube. If you do this, be sure not to drive too slowly or else your machine will double count, registering 1 for each axle. When satisfied that the set is good and active, then clear the counter to 0, close the cover, run the chain around the signpost and through the handle if there is one, and secure with a padlock. Be certain you visually see the lock close and audibly hear it snap. The easiest way to have a $250 counter stolen is to simply forget to lock it. Don't forget. After returning to your vehicle, you should take your clipboard with a daily schedule on it and record the set, listing the counter number, the station number, a location description, the time set, plus any remarks pertinent or influential to the count. Congratulations, you've just successfully completed a typical set. Without a heavy flow of traffic or vicious dogs to challenge you or curious children asking you 20 questions, a normal set should easily take less than 10 minutes, not including your driving time. This concludes the first half of our training in traffic counting. You've now been familiarized with the equipment and its purpose, and the set has been adequately demonstrated. Questions of more detail can be answered by a representative from this office when one-to-one training is scheduled. In the second half of our training, you'll be taught how and when to retrieve or pick up your equipment, and you'll also be exposed to unique situations when setting. In the first training video, you were given an overview of equipment and setting operations. In this second video, we wish to show you the proper way to retrieve the equipment, commonly called the pickup. We will also expose you to various scenarios that require the usage of different equipment or unique setting procedures. So let's begin where we left off last time. This traffic counter must remain at the location for a 24-hour period. At the end of the day of setting, you may have anywhere from 20 to 25 counters out. So the next day is designated for pickup. Basically, you drive the same course as the previous day and pick up counters in the same sequence as you set them out. If the older junior counters were used in setting, then it is imperative you pick these counters up at the exact same time of day within 5 to 10 minutes. This is because the data generated from this count is referred to as daily traffic volumes. Anything more or less is not truly representative and also fails to link up to other data already gathered. So again, we emphasize the timeliness in picking up your equipment. Now, if perchance you have the good fortune of using the newer Mitrons, then you've been profoundly blessed by the traffic gods. For these models have an automatic shutoff built into the circuitry. Therefore, you have the luxury of being late, but not early. Now, after you return the following day for pickup, follow the same procedures of safety as you did the previous day. Park carefully, as far away from traffic as possible, wear your safety cap and vest, and be constantly alert using eyes, ears, and common sense to forewarn you to oncoming traffic. When you approach your counter, be aware and look for possible signs of tampering before unlocking and opening. If the counter position is different, if the chain or road tube look unfurled or strewn about, then be suspicious, especially if young kids were noticed in the vicinity the day before. Oftentimes they will stomp the tube or ride their bicycles back and forth across the tube to activate it, thus giving higher readings. If something of this nature appears unusual, then make a note of the circumstances on your daily schedule under the remarks column. But still record the counter reading. It's up to us to decide if it's realistically valid or will necessitate a recount. If upon examination your counter appears undisturbed, then proceed to unlock the padlock and open the lid. If traffic is present, watch a vehicle cross your tube and register on the counter display to ensure it's functioning properly. At this point, you should immediately read the display and record it on your daily schedule. This is the easiest part of the entire process of setting and picking up a counter, but can also be easily overlooked in our anxiousness to pick up. After recording the display number, continue by putting the counter and chain in your vehicle. Next, loosen the tension on your road tube by flexing the wire loop. Using your hammer and crowbar, dislodge the nail spikes on both ends and put them away along with your tools. Then whip the tube to shake out the kinks, coil it up, and put it away in your vehicle. You've just successfully completed the second phase of a traffic set by picking up. Pat yourself on the back and say, "Attaboy." Now that you're experienced and knowledgeable about making a basic set and pickup, let's go into the city and present you with some different situations. Once again, you'll have a station map to follow and guide you, but various obstacles may interfere with your set. First of all, more traffic is to be expected, so be more cautious and observant. The simple act of parking your car, opening the door, and getting out is not to be taken for granted. Keep in mind that you may do this procedure several hundred times over the course of the summer, and with each time the odds become greater that an accident may occur. beat those odds, for the very same reason we wear seat belts. Not that we expect an accident, but with time the odds are greater that we'll be involved in one. So be prepared for the worst, should it happen. In the city, you will encounter much of the same things you did in the field, but a lot more of them. For example, you'll have more entrances, private and business, to contend with. Try to avoid setting near these. Vehicles entering and exiting will activate the counter more than once simply by the turning radius, and commercial businesses will naturally activate it even more, thus distorting the count total. Avoid placing the road tube anywhere in the middle of a parking space. A car may park right on top of your tube, thus pinching off the airflow, or equally as bad, may hinder your pickup if parked above your nail. If unavoidable, then align your road tube right on the painted dividing line and hope drivers can park their cars between the lines. One advantage in the city is that more fixtures to chain your counter to are available. This is fortunate in that oftentimes you've only one block in which to make your set. Never run your road tube across a sidewalk. It's not only dangerous, but it produces false counts. If a large tree is the only existing fixture and your chain is too short to wrap around, use 2 chains with a spare padlock as the connecting link. If no fixed objects are present to chain to, then screw-down anchors are your last resort. These are like giant, heavy-duty iron corkscrews. Using your crowbar as a handle for turning, 2 of these anchors are screwed into the ground on either side of the counter. Slip the chain through one anchor, then the counter, then the other anchor, and secure with a padlock. In any event, all equipment must be secured on and within the right-of-way limits and not on private property. Proximity to a stop sign, yield sign, railroad crossing, hill or grade or intersection are of primary concern. This is because the speed of a vehicle changes as it approaches and departs from any of these situations, thus affecting not only itself, but others in the same line of traffic. This can create double counting if set too close to any of these obstacles and should be avoided. For different reasons, setting on a curve can also result in overcounts. If at all possible, strive to set in the middle of a block where the traffic flow is more constant, but at the same time away from business entrances and private driveways. If you must set near a stop sign, yield sign, or railroad crossing, attempt to set at least 100 feet back from it. If a fixed object is present to chain to, but an entrance or poor road surface is directly across from it, take liberty to run the road tube along the edge of the roadway to a portion of the road where conditions are more suitable. Obviously, you're limited by the length of your road tube, but if necessary, you may splice another length of tube onto the other one by using a tube connector. This device is simply a 3-inch brass nipple that you'll insert into the ends of both road tubes and seal and secure by wrapping with friction tape. Now that you can effectively juggle 4 things simultaneously, let's throw in a few more variables. Let's start with shoulder types. As long as the street has sod, dirt, or gravel shoulders, then you will secure the road tube just as you did with the first set by driving spike nails at an angle on both ends. Should you have V-gutters, you can still stretch it beyond the paved portion and secure it with nails in the earth or gravel. But if you encounter curb and gutter, different options are to be considered. Stretching the road tube over the top of the curb and securing it in the earth presents a possible hazard to bicyclists and should be used only as a last resort. At the same time, more slack should be given to the road tube so as not to present a clothesline effect to oncoming traffic. This usage has also proven fateful to city street sweepers. They gobble up road tubes like eating licorice. The 3 options you should attempt beforehand are as follows. First, if the surface type is oil and chip or bituminous asphalt, then a PK nail can easily be driven in where the concrete gutter joins with the road surface. As usual, be sure to angle your nails with the flow of traffic. Second, if the surface type is concrete, then look for a joint or crack where you can use a PK nail in the same way as before. Keep in mind that concrete is extremely hard and the nails will be apt to bend or break off. You must use your judgment and intuition for the surface to decide if this usage is in vain or if an alternate method is preferable. Your third option is to use the D7 anchor. This takes a little more time, but is very effective. It is used mainly on dry concrete surfaces that are without joints or cracks, but can be used as well on bituminous surfaces, especially when temperatures are low and the surface is hard to penetrate with a nail. The D7 anchor is a special pad made of durable nylon material with a hook at one end to attach your road tube. Using a high-strength glue, the pad and road surface is sprayed with the bonding agent and left to dry. Note that the road surface should be swept of all small rocks and particles and should be virtually clean and smooth to ensure a good bond. After several minutes, the pad is put on the spot and stepped on to seal. The road tube can now be attached to the hook, but care should be taken not to stretch too tightly, for if the glue is not set properly, then the pad will come up. Needless to say, this method does not work very well if the road surface is wet or damp. Removal of a D7 anchor is fairly easy. Simply grasp the hook or end of the pad and use all the muscle you can to rip it off the pavement. Grunting does occasionally help. One surface type we should mention is brick. It is not too common anymore, but occasionally crops up. It is fairly easy to contend with, for you simply use a PK nail in any of the numerous joints. Bituminous asphalt is a fairly easy surface to set on, but can sometimes fool you. Oftentimes, a thin overlay of asphalt is rolled over an old brick or concrete street. Thus, when you drive your PK nails into this relatively soft surface and you suddenly hit something very hard, you should use a smaller PK nail or move your nail a little farther away from the edge of the street in search of more depth or thickness of bituminous. Dirt or gravel roads are not difficult to set on, but care should be taken to put the road tube down on a level portion of the road and avoid rutted, potted, or uneven areas of surface. Gravel frequently accumulates in the center or on the edge of the roadway, thus creating elevated peaks to contend with. Just use your foot or hammer handle to smooth or hoe out a path to lay your road tube. The various scenarios presented by no means cover all situations. Every location is unique in itself, but you'll soon recognize the similarities, and invariably, you'll eventually discover situations not discussed here only because they're rare. But what we've attempted to do is to expose you to the basic fundamentals of a common set and show you at the same time the equipment and tools at your disposal to perform your work and achieve good results. After you jump in and get your feet wet, you'll not only master techniques and develop an instinct and feel for your job, but also learn to overcome the challenges of the difficult or impossible set. Why don't we return to the office now and take a look at the final results of your labor.
Well, there you have it, a basic understanding and knowledge of traffic study field operations. Before I show and tell you the end results of collecting this data, let's briefly summarize the problems that may occur during your assignment in the field. The pickup is the moment of truth. Check for signs of tampering. Other than tampering or vandalism, any problems you have will either originate with the traffic counter, batteries are low or dead, reset button or counter display number stuck, failed to turn the switch on, or just doesn't work. Or a road tube problem exists. The nails are pulled up and tubes strung out. The tube is punctured or severed, therefore no air pressure. The tube is unplugged from counter. Or a clamp is loosened, a bolt missing. Once again, no air pressure. If any of these things happen, don't panic. Just make a single listing of these station locations, called a recount list, and make these sets separately after the completion of your regular work map. Recounts are to be expected and are somewhat disappointing. But worse than that is to go pick up your counter and discover that someone has already done it for you. Should you find your traffic counter missing or stolen, then you will have to go to the city police station or sheriff's department and file a written report with them and send us a copy of it. And yes, this does constitute a recount, but we may overlook this set until another time. Keep in mind that there is ultimately one thing worse than a stolen traffic counter: injury from an accident. That equipment will be replaced, but you can't be. Please be careful. Now, the field data you give us is posted on maps of the area you counted. These are called raw counts. They are factored, analyzed, and eventually submitted to our offices in Springfield for final scrutiny, approval, and publication. When we receive the printed maps, we distribute them to city and county authorities and keep some for interagency use, as well as for the public. The many uses of this data vary from state to local levels. Cities apply this information to justify street improvements and construction projects. They use it to prioritize police patrols. Cities, as well as businesses and realtors, employ it for commercial and industrial development. Attorneys rely on it to aid in settling legal disputes. Schools use it to organize bus routes. On a state level, it is instrumental in all construction projects. It is useful in determining overall traffic patterns. It is necessary for justifying state-funded city improvements, for usage in legislative studies and purposes, for developing future growth improvements and comprehensive planning, and the past and present traffic is analyzed to determine traffic trends. The uses and purposes are endless, and the demand is constant. Every day, requests are made for maps or specific traffic data, and we must be prepared to supply this information. For this reason and service, you, the traffic counter operator, are not only essential, but indispensable. Without your devotion, your patience, your perseverance, your work ethics, and your sense of pride, this valuable information could never be made available. What you have been audience to is a rather detailed overview of field operations for traffic counting. It by no means should be received as the definitive statement on all equipment, techniques, or procedures, for the simple reason that society, the economy, and therefore traffic volumes and patterns constantly change. So does our equipment and overall approach to gathering this ever-important data. Accepting these procedures today should be looked upon as a stepping stone for the creative changes implemented tomorrow. Without those changes, we will most certainly be left behind. Use this video to go forth. Its intent is to educate and train you to our work and your future assignment. Now you should be prepared for one-on-one training and field exposure. I wish you luck.